Okay, I think we will get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Gorham, and I'm the Regional Emergency GBV Advisor based here in Nairobi, covering East and Southern Africa on behalf of the GBV Area of Responsibility, or AOR, and we are the Global Coordination Mechanism for Gender-Based Violence in Emergencies. But for the purpose of this event, I am also the co-chair of the Regional GBV Working Group for East and Southern Africa. I see a lot of familiar names on the line. It's good to have you back. This is our February edition of our Emerging Practice webinar series. Each month, we like to present interesting or unique work that is being done in a variety of topics related to GBV in emergencies. We are really grateful to be joined by our expert today, Paula Ramirez, who is an MHPSS specialist, a mental health and psychosocial support specialist, who is going to focus the discussion today on self-care. And that's really about looking at how we care for ourselves, particularly our frontline workers who are working in very difficult environments and also working on some really difficult topics. So before I hand it over to Paula, if we could please make sure that our microphones are on mute throughout the discussion. And also if we could all turn off our cameras, because we have people calling in from lots of different places that have different bandwidth. And so that everyone can make sure that they're able to participate and listen fully. If we could have everybody please turn your cameras off. Lastly, similar to all of our other events, if you have any questions, please write your questions in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat throughout Paula's presentation, and I will be grouping like questions together, and then I will present them to Paula during the Q&A after her 30-minute presentation. So just a reminder for any new colleagues on the line, please write any questions in the chat, and I will be monitoring them, grouping them together, and then I will present them to Paula during the Q&A. So thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon, and I'm excited to discuss this very important topic, which is basically caring for the carers. So without further ado, I will turn over to Paula. Welcome, Paula. It's so good to have you on the line, and welcome to from all of us here in East and Southern Africa. Over to you.
Jessica, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for being here. Is it okay if I turn my camera on, or it's better to stay?
Yeah,
okay,
maybe if you
perfect.
turn it on for a bit of time, and then if we see that people are struggling, we can turn it off.
Okay, perfect. You just let me know, perhaps, while I'm talking without the presentation, so that you can see who is behind the dark screen. Yeah. Good. So, very excited to be with all of you today. My name is Paula Ramirez. As Jessica mentioned, I am an MHPSS specialist. I've been working in the humanitarian sector for around 20 years, and I started this the MHPSS practice working directly with survivors in the field. And then at some point, I realized that who I really wanted to work with was with first responders. Yes, I started seeing that my friends and colleagues were having a lot of different issues around their mental health, but around pains in their bodies that they didn't know where they were coming from. Yes, like this. And that connected with the amount of stress they had and connected with the amount of tension they were having because of the work that we do as first responders. So I started shifting the focus of my work from working on MHPSS with survivors to start working with first responders and trying to bring all the approach that I've been having to mental health into taking care for those groups. A lot of the focus that I have, and it's a great part of what we're going to discuss about in this presentation, is around how mental health is not something that happens from our nose up. Yes, it's not something that happens only at the cognitive level. It's something that happens in our overall body, and it's connected to our overall health. So again, a lot of the approach that I use is to understand the body and the awareness of our body in the present as being a very important part of keeping up with that mental health. Yeah, so the idea of this call, the purpose is not only to present to you what is it that we've been doing, but as well to offer to all of you the ones who are interested in a course that we've been developing in the gender-based violence area of responsibility. That, by the way, I realized that I didn't say that I am an MHPSS specialist working for the GBV AOR. But we have developed this course that we have been taking to several places, countries, contexts, cultures, and the idea is for us to offer it to, again, any of you who is interested in doing this course. So it's going to be the topic, yes, around self-care and the perspective we have at the GBV AOR around it, but as well to give you the chance, the possibility of being part of this group. Yeah, so I am gonna try to make the presentation as well as interactive as possible. So I may ask some questions, and I would love to have your responses in the chat box around it. But just to get started with the presentation, and maybe it's a good moment for me to maybe take my video off. Would that help, or should I keep it open? Well,
I think if you could, yeah, close your video, that would be great. Just because I know many people are calling from really rural areas.
Perfect, great. So I am stopping my video at the moment, and I am sharing my screen. So this topic around self-care as capacity building, and we have really liked this approach that came actually from our colleagues in Egypt when we were doing this course, and they were telling us, this is like capacity building. We should it would be amazing if we would have had the knowledge that we gained from this course when we were doing our training on case management or in GBV, yes, because this possibility, this capacity of taking care of ourselves has to do with the quality that we deliver in the field to the people that we work with. And in that sense, is directly related to capacity building, as we're going to see in this presentation. So just to tell you a little bit about the background of the project. So we started working on this project in 2020 because of COVID-19 response. Yes, in that moment, there were lots of GBV frontline workers who were having a lot of burnout. So we started doing this work. We started with 8 sessions. We are now doing 4 sessions, and then after those 4 sessions, which are 90 minutes, we move into with the groups to do 6 or 8 sessions, depending on how they feel with time. But what we are offering at the moment is 4-week sessions. Why do we do these sessions weekly over this period of time? Because we want to work with habit. Yes. The reason why for many of us it's difficult to integrate self-care practices is because we are constantly in the habit of running one thing after the other. And it's very difficult to give a space to the nervous system so that it can integrate those practices. So we work with habit. And the idea in those 4 or 6 weeks is to be able to get to connect more with ourselves, with the relationship we have with our own time, with our own rhythm, so that we can integrate practices that we know that are good for us, but that we cannot integrate. How we do this, the method is through grounding practices. Grounding meaning the capacity we have to being in the present. And that may sound very simple, but it's actually not that simple. Yes, we are constantly, like, more than 90% of the reasons we are stressed about stuff is because of things that are not yet happening, but because of the imagination, the places where the mind take us to, the worries that the mind take us to, of course. And I want to acknowledge that being first responders and working in the conditions that we work on, there are real stress sources. And specifically for that reason is that it's very important to be able to go into practices that help us restore our nervous system, precisely because we actually work in places where stress is very present. Yes. So can we stay with the situations in real life that need our awareness, attention, and presence, and keep our mind from adding many other things that perhaps are not needed when facing difficult circumstances? Yeah. We have worked, yes, through the GBV subclusters in these countries, yes, the ones in Iraq, in Bangladesh, Nigeria, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador. You can have all the list there. In some countries, we have been doing in person this course. In other places, we do it online. And with the teams, with the groups that are interested in taking these practices to the field and to the people they work with, we do what we call a second phase of the experience, so that you can actually learn how to take these practices of coming to the present, again, to the people that you work with, because oftentimes what happens is that people come to the space to learn these things so that they can take it to the people they work with. And actually the most important thing of this course is that it is designed to be for you, for each one of you as first responders, before thinking about taking it to someone else. We like to think as self-care as an ethical imperative. I don't know if you can see that part of my presentation. I'm going to put this down. Yeah, so we like to think about self-care as an ethical imperative, because there's one thing that we have been observing, working in all these different contexts, and is that there's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of guilt around taking care of oneself. There's guilt around, thinking about that, like about thinking about the possibility of taking care of oneself. There's guilt, and we like to think about it not as a luxury, but as an ethical imperative. And in this moment, I'm going to share a little bit about the how is it that we conceive that. And before I do this, I would like to invite you all. Yes, we have 114 people in the room, which is very exciting. And I would love to invite you to write in the chat box, which are your self-care practices, if you have any. So that we can have a little bit of an understanding of which are those practices for people in the room. And then I would go into like diving deeper into the content of what we're going to be looking at. So Soliana is writing swimming, reaching out to people who I trust or are understanding. Yes. And I think that we can have a lot of these things to listen to music. For some of us is sleeping. Yes, like this very important thing of being able to sleep well. But I don't know for the people who are writing, for the ones who are still listening or thinking about it, if it's actually difficult to integrate these practices. For example, knowing that it's important to sleep well. Does it happen to you that it's difficult to integrate that? Yes, knowing, okay, I know that talking to my friends, it's important, sleeping, important, eating healthy food, important, but sometimes we just overpass that. You can answer in the chat box, or you can just answer for yourselves if this is true or not. Yes, that is difficult actually to open room for that. So one of the things that we do in the course, yes, I see some of you writing there, it's difficult to keep up with self-care, and I find myself pushing it aside. Yeah, exactly. So that which you wrote there is something that we have been seeing that is very common in different contexts, places, groups. People have all these lists of things, and then it's very difficult to keep up with it. What we're going to do in the course is working around the why that is difficult. I'm not going to give you another list of things that you know are good for you. But what we're going to be exploring actually is what happens at the level of your brain and your nervous system. Yeah. What we're going to understand is how is it that being in a constant survival mode actually activates in our body, in ourselves, activates this survival activation that keeps us with a lot of constant perceived stress in our body. Imagine that the question that the nervous system is constantly asking is that about safety. Yes, whenever you go into a room, even if it's online, yes, like there is like this assessment that you're making about, oh, who is in the room, who is there, where am I? Yes, am I going to feel safe? Am I going to feel safe writing things in the chat box even? Yes, so there's a constant assessment around safety. And if that's the question that the nervous system is constantly asking, it's very important to have an awareness of our body so that we can, there's someone with the microphone on. If it's possible to turn off our microphones, that would be great. Thank you so much. Yeah. I think there's someone still with the microphone open, but yeah, anyway. So it is very important because we send a signal to our brain, not just from what we think. For example, okay, it's time to go to bed. I want to have a good rest. Yes, that is not enough for your brain to actually take you to sleep well. What is important is the communication that your brain gets to have from your body. So one thing that we have found, again, working with people in the field, is that they realize how much tension they are taking to bed. Yes. So maybe the jaw being contracted, the hands as well, the shoulders contracted, the back contracted. If we are constantly in that contraction, the assessment that we're giving to our brain is that of not feeling safe. So we may want to go to sleep, we may want to rest, but it's difficult for our system to actually go into that state because we are sending a signal around not being safe. So what we do in the sessions, one of the things that we do is going into this understanding, and we go into working with very practical tools that help us understand our body, our nervous system better, and the relationship with the present better, so that we have more capacity, so that we have more room and don't feel as stressed as many of us may feel because of the work that we do. One of the things that we have found in the field that is very interesting is the relationship first responders have with emotions. Yes. And we are exposed to so many different stories and situations that we have found that two things happen. Or we go into a lot of overwhelm, like those stories and situations, it's just too much, and at some point we get overwhelmed with all that is happening. Or we go into the opposite side, which is not feeling anything anymore. Again, one of the purposes of this course is to bring our felt sense, the capacity of feeling again, to bring it back into balance, so that we can bring balance to ourselves, our lives, our loved ones, and to the people that we work with, into the quality of that work. So very practically, one of the things that we work with, again, at the practical level, is the exploration of other senses. Yes, we not only have the five senses that we know about. Yes, we not only have the taste, touch, smell, hearing. We also have other senses that are the ones that help us connect with the experience of our body and what is it that we are feeling and sensing. So one of the senses that is very interesting in neuroscience at the moment is interoception, which is the knowing moment to moment of what is happening in your body. So again, if you're not connected with your body, and the only moment where you really listen to it is when you want to go to the toilet or when you have to go to the doctor because you're sick, yes, that is taking you away from your interoception, from that knowing to knowing, the moment to moment knowing of what's happening. And this is important because in that knowing moment to moment of what is happening is where you can start building another assessment around stress and safety. Just feeling that your body can feel a little bit more ease and relaxed. The other thing that we work with is with something called proprioception, which is the capacity to feel our body in relationship to a space, our balance, our posture. A lot of the things that we have seen as well working with first responders is how the posture changes, like some of us may go into more contracted places, we may, yes, so it's important, and that contraction in our posture creates other health issues. So how is it that we can perceive and feel again ourselves connected with our bodies to the present, to widen up our mental health capacity and skills. And the other thing that we work with is something that is called neuroception, which is the moment-to-moment detection of threat and safety. Yes, so for many of us, and this is true for the people that we work with, but is as well true for us as first responders, and is we may be in spaces, in places that are safe, but if we're not connected to ourselves, to the experience of our body, we're constantly feeling that we're actually not safe. And no space, even if it's a safe space, is not going to help us feel that safety, where we can again find more ease and space within ourselves. So the alignment, yes, I'm going to move again this bar up. Yeah. So the alignment of these senses of interoception, proprioception, and neuroception, this perceived sense of safety, the aligning of this is the compass, yeah, so that we stay in our full bodily autonomy. Yes, in the GBV world, we like to talk about the bodily autonomy, but what is it made of if we are not able to actually connect to our body? And to perceive and understand that our mental health has a lot of it is placed again in everything that we are, in all the experience of our body in the present. Yeah, so in the sessions, there are three things that happens, yes. One is the practices or experiments that we do with our body, like this, again, this connection to the grounding, to bringing more stability to your body, and in that way to your mind. There's another thing that happens, which is a common humanity, yes, the moment where we get to share with others, oh, yes, this has happened to me, I'm feeling stressed about this, or I'm feeling guilty about this and this, yes. So we get time and space to actually share our experiences, not only as first responders, but as human beings, yeah, in the field. And we go around topics, for example, the topics of the brain, the nervous system, the window of tolerance, something very beautiful that I'm always very excited to talk about, which is the polyvagal theory, which is just a comprehensive understanding of how is it that our whole nervous system works in relationship to ourselves, but in relationship with others. And that is where we connect in this ethical imperative, because as much ground as we have, if we have more our ground, our mental health in place, we're able to bring more quality into the work that we do. That's why that's why our colleagues in Egypt were calling this course as a capacity building course. Yeah, it's like, okay, this has an impact in the way in which I do my work. And there are actual ways and methods to regulate emotions to feel a little bit better with ourselves. Yeah. What we are restoring at the level of our nervous system in these sessions is our relationship with time, with the space, and with our own rhythm. And we like to think self-care as a political act, and not about privilege, but about dignity, about feeling more spacious in ourselves, with more capacity to actually keep being the human beings that we are, feeling, connecting with ourselves, with our loved ones, and with the people that we work for. Yes, so this is this first part where I wanted to present like to give a very brief outline of this for you, and ask if you would be interested to be part. Yes, if you would be interested, I will send through Jessica an application format that you can fill out and send to me, and we can organize these groups. And in this part of the presentation, I would like as well to take us to an experiential practice, yeah, so that you can actually feel during this session a lot of what we're training in us coming together week after week in these sessions. And before I go into that practice, I was wondering if anyone has a question or a comment, something that you may want to, yeah, that is interesting for you or something, yeah, before we go into our practice. Questions or comments about this part? Okay, I'm hoping it is making sense for all of you. Jessica, I wanted to validate with you how much time I have for the practice before we open.
Hi, Paula. We didn't have so many questions so far, so we still have 20 minutes left. Unless I get
Perfect.
a flurry of questions, you can have all 20.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, so we can go into our practice, and then perhaps we can share in the chat box after the practice how did we feel, and if there's anything that is coming up for you with what I just presented that you want to again ask or comment, please feel free to do so while we go into the practice. Yeah, so as you are there, yeah, in wherever place that you're in, yes, you may be being part of this meeting while you're walking, you may be part of it while you are at your house, in an office, wherever you are, in whatever situation you are attending this meeting. Take a moment to look around the place that you're in. If it's possible for you to give a moment to actually connect and bring awareness to the room or the place. I have people joining sometimes that are in the cars coming from the field. So giving yourself a moment just to perceive and to look around. This that we're doing is something that is super helpful for the nervous system, which is something called orientation, that we stop doing somehow when we start doing one thing after the other, going into this survival state. We lose this capacity to orient in space. Yeah, so just taking a moment to notice, and if possible, bringing your awareness towards your feet. If it's possible there to bring awareness there to the feet, if for whatever reason feet are not something accessible for you to feel at the moment, perhaps your hands. If you happen to be walking, for example, going somewhere and you're listening to me as you do, noticing what is happening with those steps. If you are seated, noticing the connection of the feet with the ground. Again, if feet are not there, no, like for you to support you in this practice, perhaps the hands. You can check and validate with which part you feel more connected with at the moment. And really, one of the main allies of the nervous system is time. Yes. What is funny and what is interesting is that if there is one thing that we don't have is time. Yes, because again, we're running one thing after the other. And this doesn't mean that you have to, or to be slow, or that you have to, no. Even if you're walking, even if you're doing something else right now, as perhaps typing in your, writing an email or answering something, you can still connect and have a space to bring your attention to the present. What we're doing in bringing the attention to the present is actually the grounding that we're talking about. Yes, like that grounding happens with your awareness in the present. That can happen with you doing nothing, just perceiving the temperature of your hands or your feet, the things that they are touching, or it can happen again while you're writing an email, while you're walking. There's this possibility of bringing awareness to ourselves. And that slowly take us out of the survival mechanisms that we're going to explore in depth during the course. Those survival mechanisms that we go into a habit, yes? And taking a moment to feel your spine, the relationship that you have with your back at the moment, the spine, and if you happen to be seated, how is it that the chair is supporting your back? If you happen to be walking, for example, noticing how is it that you're walking and how is it that your spine is participating in you walking. And bringing awareness, if possible, towards your jaw. So noticing how much space your tongue is having inside your mouth. Noticing what is the distance between your upper teeth and the lower teeth. And this is a place that we would be exploring in the sessions a lot, because that is, for example, one of the places where we keep a lot of tension without us realizing. Yes, when we are in the survival mode and doing one thing after the other, there are these kind of places and muscles that are constantly contracted and we don't know, we're not aware. So we may sleep as well with a contracted jaw. We may be during the day creating a lot of tension. And those are the things that without us knowing are telling our brain that we're not actually safe. Yeah. So again, we may know that sleeping is important, but if we're constantly having those tensions that we're not aware of, it's going to be very difficult to sleep or to integrate any other of the practices that you know that are good for you. So again, taking a moment to bringing that awareness into the quality, the space of the tongue inside your mouth, your jaw. And if it's possible to notice there, how is it that you're breathing as you do that? What happens with your breath? What happens, for example, with other muscles? We can do together a small practice that actually help us understand how the nervous system works. If you feel like it, you can bring one of your hands, the right hand or the left hand, at the height of your jaw or your chest, yes, and leaving the hand there without having to do anything. And noticing there, how is it that your breath is happening, the quality of that hand. And if possible, if you can bring a sudden fist into your hand. Yes, how is it to close your hand and make a fist? Do you realize what is happening with your breath? Do you realize what is happening with other muscles? Hmm. And I'm not seeing the chat box, but you can write if anyone feels like writing. How does that feel when you close your hand and make a fist? What happens? Maybe your breath stops. Maybe other muscles create tension. Yes. This is one of the qualities that we will be exploring of our nervous system. That is the sympathetic nervous system. That is the one that helps us fight or fly. When we are in constant activation, when we are in the survival mode. So when we are not aware of ourselves, we're constantly creating this tension. Again, giving a signal of not feeling safe, of not having space. If we keep holding our fist, yes, if we have our fist there, and if we bring our breath towards the fist, yes, if we put a little bit of attention towards our breath and how is it that we're breathing, and if we can imagine that our fist breathes and that we can take the air towards the fist. Again, you can write in the chat box or just feel it yourselves, but suddenly what the fist wants to do is to open. What the fist wants to do is to open. This is the quality of the nervous system that we are trying to bring during these sessions. During these courses, what we're going to do is to bring more this quality that is more open, that has more space, that is more aware. Because in this quality is actually the quality in which you can rest. Because for many of us as first responders, because we are in the constant habit and in the constant activation, it's very hard to rest. And resting is one of the main things that we need to have in place in order to have a sound mental health. Yes. So that's why we're going to exploring this quality, this capacity in our felt sense, in our body during these sessions. Yeah, so leaving your hand for a moment, letting it rest. And taking a moment again to notice the space that you're in, which can happen if you're walking, if you're writing. You can as well perceive what is going on around you and pace yourself a little bit, pacing. Yeah. And if you feel like it for finishing, perhaps bringing your shoulders towards your ears. Yeah, like bringing tension, and releasing the air and noticing what happens with the muscles, with your breath. And again, breathing in, tension, and releasing. And noticing how is the space that you feel in your body, what's happening with your breath, what's happening with your overall awareness of being in the present. So this all may seem very simple, and it's actually very difficult. Yes. And we need ongoing practice. Again, that's why we do the sessions in this way weekly, so that we can cultivate this capacity in ourselves, which again doesn't mean that you need to be slow or that you need to feel like well and happy always. It is not about that. is having more capacity to be with complexity. Again, for yourselves, for your loved ones, and the people that you work with. Yeah, so I see that perhaps there are now questions in the chat box, and also if you feel like writing in the chat box as well. How did you feel with the practice? How was it for you? And I'm going to plug the computer for a moment. But while you write, if anyone feels like writing how you felt,
Hi, Paula.
how was it?
We did have a couple questions that I
Yeah.
will present now. And I think we have from Halefti and Alo, and kind of similar, and I'm going to package this together. What would you recommend that our participants today, how would you recommend or where to get resources on how to incorporate this, whether they're supervisors or they want to incorporate it in their work sites?
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. So that is exactly what we're trying to do with offering this course. Yes. So this space that Jessica gave to me, and thank you for that, was for telling you a little bit about what this course on self-care as capacity building is about, so that you can actually come to the course and access those resources. Yes, access those resources for yourself. We will make WhatsApp groups, so I will be recording practices weekly. Yes, so that you can find those resources, but taking them with yourself home. And again, if you're interested afterwards in taking some of these practices to the field, we would go into a second phase so that you can understand how, like, the nuance of taking this, because there is a trauma sensitive component that we need to understand before we want to take this to others. That's why it's very important that you keep it for yourself. So yeah, that would be one of the answers to that. And another answer would be, Jessica, there is a very good tool developed by WHO that is called Doing What Matters in Times of Stress, which is a lot about these grounding practices. The only downside that I see of that method is that you cannot share with anyone what is happening, and the practices are very limited. The resources are very limited. So again, in this course, we can explore more of that.
Great. Thanks, Paula. Before we go on, just for some logistics, because they have questions about the course, but I just wanted to make a distinction between what we're doing here, which is really talking about caring for the carer, and then how we look and perhaps care for our survivors through a case management process. And so I just want to make that distinction. We had a couple of comments in the chat. You can always incorporate some of these wellness or stress reduction techniques with your clients in a case management setting. But I want to stress the importance of really taking part in a case management training, if you haven't done so already, to get some more advanced techniques about how we engage with survivors who are experiencing stress, and how we can mitigate that through also referrals, and then other ways that we can through a case management process. So this is certainly an element of that, but it's not maybe in terms of dealing with a survivor, not the only element.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you for that, Jessica.
And then, Paula, can you just briefly remind us how many weeks is the course that you are launching in our region?
Yeah, so we are offering the starting point that we are offering is 4 sessions with many teams in the field, we start with 4 sessions, 90 minutes weekly. We would agree which time is best for you with Jessica, or but the idea is to do it 90 minutes, 4 sessions, and then as we move forward, we check with the group if we want to go into 6 sessions or not. Yeah, because we have found in the field that saying 6 weeks is too much. Yes, so we start with 4, and then again we decide if we go into 6.
And Paula, just for sake of transparency, what is the total what is the total number of students you can accept into this 4-week course?
Yeah, so we do it for 20 to 25 people. It often happens that we have more people that want to take the course, so we do more than one cohort. So we would leave the first ones who apply are the ones who get the course first, and then we go into a second, into a waiting list cohort, and we cover
Okay, perfect.
the amount of people.
So I want to remind everyone who is on the line today, there is an application process. So we will be sending out those materials to your subcluster coordinators in country, and they can distribute as well. And then we also have your email addresses through the registration process. But more specifically, we will be trying to track this through your subcluster or your national GBV working groups, so that we can also potentially provide additional support through our coordination mechanisms. So please note that we will be sending out the application process or materials to your subcluster coordinators, the GBV subcluster coordinators. Or I know we have some countries on the line who are working in countries that have national GBV working groups. So please note that. And also please note that those who are working for local organizations, frontline workers in emergencies will be prioritized. And also this course is delivered in English at this time. So we'll have to think about other languages at another time. But just to clarify, we do have all of your email addresses because you registered with us to join this webinar today. So we do have your contact information. If you are interested in reviewing this webinar, you can always find this webinar in all of our other emerging practice series on our YouTube channel. And you can access our YouTube channel simply by going onto YouTube, typing in GBV AOR, and then you'll have a list of all of the videos we have done throughout the years on various topics, including this one with Paula. We have about 2 minutes left, Paula. Any last words for our participants?
Yeah, no, I think one more thing that I would like to say is the course would be given in English, but we have worked in other countries with translators. So
Okay.
that's as well available. Yes, we could organize a cohort where we can think about other languages.
Great. So we'll
Yeah.
specifically target our French-speaking colleagues and then also Portuguese as well for our East and Southern Africa region. And then you'll see Shiva, thankfully, just put the link to our YouTube channel in the chat. So please do copy that link and you can have access to this resource and all sorts of others that we have recorded over the years here at the Regional GBV Working Group for East and Southern Africa. And I'm happy to say, Paula, we have just arrived on time. And so we really appreciated having you here today with us, Paula. You can see that we had so many in so much interest in this topic, and I think we're going to have a lot of applicants who are also interested in joining either the first cohort or some of the others as well. So thanks again, Paula, for joining us. It's always great to see your face and to hear your voice, and we look forward to having more engagement in the future on this 4-week course. And as I mentioned just previously, to all of those on the line, we will be sending out applications for the 4-week course through your coordination mechanisms at country level. Those who are working for local organizations in emergency settings will be prioritized. So thanks, everybody. Please keep your eye out. We have lots of events coming up, particularly for International Women's Day. We will be having a panel discussion on femicide. So we look forward to seeing you all back online in the coming weeks for some more of our learning events that we launch here at the Regional GBV Working Group for East and Southern Africa. On behalf of myself, Jessica, and the GBV AOR, and our new co-chair, IRC, and our the co-chair, Mercy, thanks very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you online in the near future. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Thank you so much.